Hello. My name's Natalia Stuyk, and I'm a video artist. I predominantly do work for brands making promotional videos on the internet, just to summarize what I do. Some of them are music videos, some of them are fashion films. I do a lot of stuff on social media, lots of video loops and stuff like that, but a lot of my own personal work is more sort of experimental, abstract, working with shapes and textures and colors. And yeah, so that's my show reel. But the project that I want to talk to you today is a new project which is completely different to the work that I've done up until now. I don't know if you're familiar with a company called Melissa Shoes, but they are a Brazilian company who makes sustainable, amazing shoes that are very colourful and fun and very good for the environment, and they're just a wonderful company. We're collaborating on an installation to take over their gallery and their Galleria in New York City in the summer. I'd wanted to show you the final product, but the deadline got pushed back. So it's still a work in progress, but I'm really excited about it, and it's a completely new direction for me. So I really want to just share the design process and how it's all coming together and some of the hurdles along the way. This is the Galleria in New York. These are actually 3D renders, but I mean, you'll still get the idea. They're a pretty forward-thinking brand, really open to collaborating with artists and taking chances on creating new experiences for their customers. And rather than creating just branded content, I feel like they try and do something that's more engaging and different. And I think ultimately this creates such a strong bond between like getting to the store and the customer and the brand. Everything sort of comes together. And they're just a pretty dreamy group of people to work with. As you walk in, there's like 2 massive screens, and there's like a walkway, and you can see the product on either side, and mirrors on the floors, and then this is kind of like the space. So the brief was to somehow materialize my videos into real life structures, and I've always thought about this, but I just have no idea how to do it. Melissa had identified work of mine that they felt would work well within the space, but otherwise it's a completely open brief, and among the creatives in the room, having an open brief is not always the best idea. I use a lot of reflective materials in my videos and a lot of digital imagery that hints at something that's like super real, something tangible, but it feels much more heightened and saturated. None of it really exists in a definable space either. It's just kind of like floating in the middle of nowhere. So the brief was somehow to translate this aesthetic into a series of real structures that could inhabit the Galleria. Thankfully, there's someone to help me do that, which is this company called Soft Lab, which is run by an architect called Michael Sivos. And a lot of work that they do is already using a lot of the similar forms that I try to express digitally. But I'm not used to the constraints of real-life objects, and I'm not used to actual tangible material. I'm purely digital artist. So in videos, the limit is my own technical ability. I generally always find a way to get my point across, but I feel like this is a whole different approach. I also wanted to tell a story with the installation. I needed a concept to ground it and bring it all together. A lot of my work explores themes of escapism. I travel a lot, and I feel like travel and new places, new colors and new textures influence my work a whole lot. So the title that I've landed on has been Paraíso, which means paradise in Spanish. And my family are from Spain, so a lot of my work draws inspiration from the places that I frequent a lot. Spain in particular comes up again and again. I try and echo like the slowness of it, in like a lot of my work is just really sort of tropical and fluid motions and stuff like that. So, the concept. So I settled on shard-like structures that I'm generally quite fascinated by in nature. So the image on the right-hand side is a photo that I took in my garden of birds of paradise flowers. This sort of shard-like structure has versatility to look organic and digital at the same time. Just if you cover it in a different color or add a different texture or change the context of it, it fuses the real world with computer-generated imagery. So I thought this would be perfect to tie in the video element to the sculptural one. This is just a clip of another video that I made called Wish You Were Here. I use these sort of shard-like, sort of folded things throughout my work a lot, and well, I guess they're sort of more like birds in this clip, but it's a shape that I revisit a lot. I continued exploring this. I know full well that the real-life version won't move, but I find it very, very difficult to design anything without making it move, which makes it probably quite hard to create in real life, but, it's fine. The installation is going to be based on these shapes. So I can easily emulate digitally. It allows me to play with scale. It's very versatile. I use it over and over. I could create huge versions of these in that initial sort of walkway that you saw at the beginning, so that you'd be totally immersed in them. And then it should feel like you're inside the video. And then sort of like, as you're walking through into the rest of the space, it should feel like there's hundreds of similar shapes populating the whole store, hanging at different levels, with interactive lights that vary in brightness depending on where the visitors are in the store. What's really, really frustrating is that SoftLab actually just sent me renders of what it's going to look like in the space, but that's on my phone, not in the presentation, so I can't show you. Just imagine it. So we're going to make this out of dichroic film, which is generally just used as the covering for a flat surface. It's not usually used as a material on its own, which gives it sort of like strange limitations. But we chose it because the way in which it reflects light is super interesting. It reflects light but allows you to see through it at the same time. It's incredibly lightweight, so we can hang them all over the shop. If someone bumps into one, they're not going to sue the store, stuff like that. In the right circumstances, it can look like super iridescent. They're just infinitely fascinating to look at. Also, you can see video through it, which is good for the initial walkway. I use a lot of textures in my work as well, so I'll be able to use this same texture in the video that will be right at the entrance. Something that I've been thinking about a lot recently is that to give the video a bit more depth and context instead of just being abstract evolving patterns, I can experiment with movement that responds to the laws of physics. The sculptures in the Galleria will exist in real life. There'll be actual physical things that you can touch. So I want the video to also be true to this. I want to have sort of a hint of realism, which I've not actually ever done before. I studied animation, but I've not ever adhered to any of those rules for some reason. So I'm going to give that a go. So the aesthetic overall is going to end up being a slight nod to J.G. Ballard's book of shorts called Vermilion Sands, which I read a few years ago, but I'm rereading it again, and it's sort of started to creep into all of my work again. So I want to sort of animate clouds of dust and that sift through the negative space, and sand and heat that rises off every surface. I want to convey this sort of sense of paradise without resorting to the stereotypical image of like a palm tree on a beach. I want to create something otherworldly and ethereal. So I want to transmit that feeling of, I want to be in it, or I want to touch it. But then at the same time, you're going to be in a physical space in which there are these elements that feel like they're spilling out of the video. So yeah, if anyone's in New York over summer, preferably as of the 24th of May, pop into Galleria Melissa, and hopefully the installation will be really good. To finish, I want to leave you with a video that's actually finished to prove that I can finish things. A couple of years ago, I spent 3 weeks in Tokyo, and it was the first time that I'd properly started thinking about how forms move in 3D space. And I came back to London with an image in my head of this never-ending structure that had no end, and it was just constantly rotating, covered in neon lights, because that's what really stuck out to me in Tokyo. And I'd never made anything like it before, so I had to figure out that process through a lot of trial and error. And it's basically informed the way I kind of approach a lot of my projects now, even though it was 3 years ago. So I thought I'd finish on showing you this video, and I hope you like it.